tumor resistance. And in a minute I'll also get to certain circuits you can use as like a control voltage source, so don't worry about that. I was going to have a handout, but I didn't know how many people were going to be here, so I didn't want to print out like 100. So I'll also actually put that on my website, and I'll be flipping back and forth to that as I talk. But so how do you convert a voltage to a resistance? Well, really there's a number of ways. I'm going to be talking about two because these are the most commonly used by do-it-yourselfers and the two easiest ones to do. The first are called back controls. I don't know if you guys have seen the circuit bending documentary. Cynthia, who's an analog synth maker, talks a lot about these. They're these little devices where there's an LED on one side and a light-sensitive resistor on the other side. And as the LED flashes, the light-sensitive resistor's resistance changes. So pretty basic voltage to resistance. You can actually homebrew those with LED, light-sensitive resistor, hot glue, electrical tape, and I'll show you. I have a whole slide on that in a sec. So they're also made by commercially by companies. They used to be made by a company called Backpack, and a lot of older synth circuits, a lot of guitar pedal circuits from the 70s and 80s use these manufactured back rolls because they're not manufactured as much now as they used to be because commercially most people use digital circuits now. Resistance doesn't matter as much in digital circuits. Because remember, as I said, a switch is either 0 or infinity, there's nothing in between. But a back control makes it so that there is stuff, or allows it to. But there's a company called Park & Elmer, which makes back controls now if you guys are interested in buying some. Personally, I build them most of the time. It's cheaper, and in a pinch you can make one, no problem. The other device I'm going to be talking about is a personal favorite of mine. If you go to my website and on my message board, you'll probably find me recommending it to a lot of people. It's called H11F3, and I'll be talking about that in a little bit. There are other methods of converting voltage to resistance. You can actually just not use resistance. There's a lot of synth circuits actually don't really convert the voltage to a resistance. They just use the voltage as a control in some other way that is normally more complicated. Those circuits are not general. A back control is general. You can put a voltage in, you get a resistance out all the time. It's always the same. You can't take the voltage control part of a voltage control oscillator and throw it into that device most of the time. So we're not going to really worry about that. Also, some people get voltage to resistance by having an electronic switch on and off really fast. Kind of a messy method. We're not going to talk about that. Finally, there's a device called the LM13700, which is really good if you want to make a voltage control amplifier or a voltage control filter, even a voltage control oscillator, but not really anything else. There are ways to use it as a voltage control resistor, but it requires a lot of extra circuitry and a lot of extra care. But if you want to start getting into making synth circuits, LM13700s are probably going to pop up pretty quickly. But we're not going to talk about those today. So back controls. Back controls are quick and dirty. You can make them quickly. They're not that perfect, but they'll definitely get the job done 90% of the time. Like I said, it's simply an LED coupled with an LDR, sometimes they call them LSR, light sensitive resistor. LDR is light dependent resistor. They also call them CDS cells, photo cells, call a lot of things. But so all it is an LED coupled with a light, like a light sensitive resistor. I'll probably interchange those terms, so excuse me if that's confusing, but you'll find that people call them all kinds of things. They're cheap, they're easy to make in a pinch. The resistance range depends on the light detecting resistor. This is where I get here. This here is a back control that I made myself a little while ago. You can see there's two leads on one end and two on the other end. The two on one end is the LED. Two on the other end are from the photo set. And I went to, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the site, smallbearelect.com. They sell parts. And he sells a number of different photocells with varying resistance ranges. So you can sort of, say you have a bend that you use 1,000 kilo ohm pop on, then you'd want a photocell with roughly 1,000 ohms of resistance, maybe a little more. Not a big deal because you can turn that light all the way off. So you might want to get 8102. It really, especially when you're bending, it really can be really flexible. It doesn't have to be too specific, but you can get them in different ranges depending on what you order. If you go to Radio Shack, you can buy a pack of these. You can of course use them without LEDs too. A lot of people throw them on their bend devices or their oscillators, and then it's light sensitive, so it'll vary depending on how much light is in. So, and also I meant to mention, with these ranges, notice how the minimum light resistance isn't much below 5 kiloohms. So if you have a bend with a pot that goes from 0 to 1 kiloohm, and you try to use a photocell, it's not going to work because the photocell can't get below 5 kiloohms. There's nothing really below on that chart. So it really has to be a bend that uses a really big pump. The bigger the better. They also don't work well with fast resistance changes because the photocells are not, they're not instant. So if you're trying to modulate it really quickly, if you're trying to turn it on and off really, really fast, it won't respond fast enough, and it'll just sound like it's on all the time. That can be kind of nice. And sometimes they require extra circuitry to work like you want it to, like depending on what you're controlling it with, it can require some extra stuff. So now we get to the H11F3, which is similar to the Raffel in that it does pretty much the same thing. The difference is that the H11F3 is a little more precise. Rather than being LED coupled with a photocell, it's coupled with what's called a FET. FETs are transistors. This is what the schematic symbol looks like. Basically, you might as well think of it as a resistor, as a light switch resistor. They cost about $1 each from Mouser. Mouser's an electronics parts site. There's no way to make these do it yourself. They're just basically little chips with a 6 lead, so you can't make them yourself. At least not as far as I know. But they're only about $1 each. They're not too bad. I have a bunch of them. I use them probably too much. Some of the nice things about the H11F3 when compared with the Raffel is that the resistance range is constantly continuous. So with the photocells, it's likely to vary. You saw that there are a lot of different resistance ranges for those photocells. This H11F3 is really the same unit to unit. If I use an H11F3 in one circuit, I want to use it the same way in another one, do that. It doesn't matter. It's not going to change the circuit. They also, with the H11F3, you get all the way down to about 100 ohms. Before we do, we get down to maybe 5 kiloohms. So this can get much closer to a switch, which is 0 ohms. And you can get up to 100 megohms, which is basically all. It's basically not connected anymore. Yeah, it's huge. So, I mean, this resistance range is gigantic. So these are really useful. Also, because you can tailor them to a specific range by putting less voltage on them. You can get from like 100 ohms to 1 kilo rather than 100 ohms to a megohm. They're also very fast. They'll go just as fast, faster than you can even hear. Just super fast, as fast as you need. They can be a little picky in audio circuits because it's a transistor rather than just a regular resistor. So you have to be a little careful with that. Most of the time, this isn't going to make a difference at all. I've actually personally never had any problems with this. The people on the internet have complained that they're using this in if they plug their guitar directly into one of these, it'll sound distorted. I haven't had any problems like that personally. Like the Vactrol, it may require extra circuitry to work like we want it to. I'll explain what I mean by that. So an LED is not really voltage controlled. I was talking about control voltages. LEDs aren't really voltage controlled, they're current controlled. You might not be familiar with Ohm's law, but that's okay. Hopefully what I'll say will make sense, and this is one spot where you should stop me if something doesn't make sense. So, like I said, an LED, most of the time when you hook up an LED,